Chosen one. Pause, because what you're about to hear isn't just information. It's a revelation that could change how you see your entire life, your battles, and the parts of yourself you've been taught to fear. This isn't just for anyone. This is for those who've felt a war inside, for the ones who've tasted the fire of their own darkness and wondered if it meant they were broken. You're not broken, you're rare. Just 72 hours ago, something happened in the spiritual realm that froze even the highest angels in complete, breathless silence. It wasn't chaos, it wasn't evil. It was you, a chosen one who entered your own darkness not to be consumed by it, but to wield it. You didn't run from the shadows. You walked in, faced what was threatening your light, used that dark power like a weapon, and came back clean, unstained, still yourself. The angels didn't cheer. They trembled, because they saw something not even they, beings of holy light, can do. You stepped into the realm of what should destroy you, and you didn't just survive. You mastered it. What terrified them wasn't your darkness, it was your impossible ability to move between worlds that were never meant to coexist. You crossed a boundary ancient laws declared unbreakable, and you returned untouched. You became living proof that the old decree, whoever touches darkness becomes darkness, no longer applies to you. This isn't a story about becoming perfect. It's a truth about being whole. You weren't made to be all light or all dark. You were made to carry both and still remain pure at your core. That's what the angels can't comprehend. That's why even heaven whispers about you, because you are operating at a level of spiritual evolution they were never designed to reach. And it's why the enemy fears you more than anything, because you don't collapse in darkness, you navigate it. That's the real power. That's divine evolution. Psalm 139:12 says, "Even the darkness will not be dark to you, the night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you." That verse was written for moments like this. Now, as you step into this truth, into your calling, I want you to declare it. Type Amen in the comments if you know this message is for you. If you're ready to stop fearing your shadows and start honoring the strength God hid inside them, and don't go anywhere. Because by the end of this video, I'll walk you through a prayer, one that aligns your strength with heaven's plan and reminds hell exactly who it's dealing with. This is your moment. Let's go. What happened 72 hours ago wasn't just a personal turning point. It was a ripple that moved through spiritual history, a moment that defied ancient laws, laws believed to be written into the very structure of the cosmos. But to understand the weight of what you did, what awakened inside you, we need to go all the way back, not just to the start of your story, but to the beginning of time itself. In the first breath of creation, spiritual laws were set in place to preserve the delicate balance between light and darkness. These weren't flexible rules, they were absolutes. One of the oldest and most unbreakable was this: whoever touches darkness becomes darkness. No exceptions. To step into darkness, even with the best of intentions, meant corruption, meant loss, meant falling beyond the reach of redemption. History proves it. The angel once called the morning star, Lucifer, touched pride for a moment and fell like lightning from heaven. Luke 10:18. His transformation was instant. No pause, no warning. Light extinguished, replaced by complete darkness. And those who followed him shared the same fate. Beings of light, erased from the book of life, their names forgotten, their essence warped into something unrecognizable. Humans weren't immune. Those who dabbled in forbidden knowledge, who summoned forces they thought they could control, learned too late that the cost was irreversible. Their souls bore marks that no priest, no penance, no ritual could ever wash away. The spiritual realm knew this as truth. Light and darkness could not mix. To enter the dark was to lose yourself in it. That's how it worked for millennia. But something began to shift. Quietly, unpredictably. A few human beings began to emerge, who did the impossible, not by accident, and not through dark pacts, but through something far more mysterious. They faced their own shadows, not to indulge them, not to be overtaken by them, but to use what lay buried inside as a tool, as protection, as wisdom. They weren't corrupted. They came back to the light, untainted, whole. At first, heaven itself didn't know what to make of it. Was it a glitch, a spiritual loophole? But then it happened again, and again, and the pattern became impossible to ignore. These weren't mistakes. They were something new, a kind of spiritual evolution that hadn't been written into the old laws, a capacity to integrate both light and dark, not as enemies, but as parts of a complete self, a higher wisdom, a new creation. And 72 hours ago, you stepped into that very truth. It wasn't a grand, mystical event. It was subtle, earthly, human. You were faced with someone who wore vulnerability like a costume tears that weren't real, pain that was rehearsed, emotional manipulation so precise it could fool anyone. And at first, your light responded kind, compassionate, as it always is. You reached out with empathy, not knowing the trap was already being set. But then, something in you knew. You caught the detail, the flicker in the eyes, the energy mismatch, the silent warning only your spirit could hear. In that moment, you shifted, not into rage, not into cruelty, but into clarity. A calm, fierce clarity that belongs to your hidden side, the part of you that only surfaces when you must defend the sacred, the side that speaks truth like a blade. Without raising your voice, you said what needed to be said. No softening, no guilt. You exposed the lie and ended the performance, not with anger, but with authority, with peace, with power. You didn't lose your compassion, you protected it. Your dark side didn't overpower your light, it guarded it. And this is the truth ancient laws never predicted, that someone like you would arise, someone who can move between worlds, between tenderness and strength, mercy and truth without becoming lost, without losing who you are. This isn't a mistake. You are not a contradiction. You are a new design, one the heavens didn't foresee, but now stand in awe of. Let this truth settle deeply. You are proof that redemption isn't just recovery, it's rebirth. Not in spite of your shadows, but through them. Let's keep moving deeper. What happened next wasn't just the conclusion of a spiritual confrontation, it was the unveiling of a truth that unsettled the heavens. The person who tried to manipulate you didn't back down. They pressed harder, more tears, more guilt, more elaborate layers of victimhood and emotional distortion. But something in you had shifted in such a profound way that the very tactics which would have pierced you just minutes before now bounced off, powerless. It was as if your spirit had erected a wall unseen but impenetrable. What once triggered your empathy now met quiet discernment. Not coldness, not pride, but clarity. You saw through the performance with calm eyes. And here's what truly startled the watching angels. Once the moment passed, you didn't stay in the armor. You didn't hold on to resentment or replay the scene 1,000 times in your head. You simply let it go, like breath. You returned to your natural state, compassionate, kind, generous with those who are real. The darkness within you had done its job, not to dominate, not to corrupt, but to protect. And then it withdrew, silently, like a bodyguard stepping back once the threat is gone. This is what the angels had never seen before. One whispered, "This shouldn't be possible. The laws are clear." Another replied, "If a human can do this, then they carry something we were never given." And they were right. The angelic realm was made of light, but untouched by life's grit. They've never suffered betrayal, never gone hungry, never cried alone, never endured the ache of human rejection. Their world is pure but sterile, untested, and like a person raised in a perfectly sanitized room, they have no immunity, no scars, no resistance. When exposed to even the slightest shadow, they fall fast and completely. But you were born into a broken world. You've known hunger not just for food, but for love, safety, and truth. You've tasted betrayal. You've been wounded in places no one else sees. And while it nearly broke you at times, every scar became strength. Every heartbreak built an immunity that the angels will never understand. You didn't just survive the darkness, you learned its language. You didn't surrender to it, but you stopped being afraid of it. That's why you can enter it without being consumed. That's why you can call upon that part of yourself when necessary and still return to your light. Not with guilt, not with shame, but with peace. For you, the dark isn't acid. It's cold water, shocking, intense, but familiar. You've been here before, and that history becomes your power. But even more than your ability to move between realms, what truly unsettles the heavens is how you do it. With wisdom, anyone can explode when hurt. Anyone can turn sharp and cruel when backed into a corner. But that's not you. You don't live in your dark side. You manage it. You use it like a scalpel, not a hammer. You know exactly when to say enough. You know how to hold a boundary without needing to destroy the person on the other side of it. You've learned the balance, the sacred line between fierce and cruel, between necessary protection and emotional revenge. And that wisdom? It wasn't handed to you. It wasn't taught in a book. You earned it the hard way in moments no one else saw. Nights where you cried yourself into strength. Days when silence was your only teacher. You were refined in the fire of real experience, and what came out was something extraordinary. Discernment, restraint, power paired with mercy. You didn't lose your light to get here. You learned how to guard it, how to wield your shadow in service of your soul, not in defiance of it. And in doing that, you became something new, not angel, not demon, something beyond both. A human who walks through fire, carries both flame and water, and somehow emerges whole. That's not just power, that's sacred evolution. Let's keep going, because this part of your story reveals something most people never even realize about themselves. It explains why you felt different your whole life, why you often couldn't fully belong in spaces that only allowed one part of you to exist. Why you've always sensed there was more going on beneath the surface, even when others couldn't see it. Your light side is beautiful. It's the part of you that responds with compassion when others are in pain. It's the part that listens deeply, forgives freely, gives generously, and holds space for those who are hurting. When someone comes to you with honest tears, when a situation calls for healing rather than judgment, when empathy is what's needed to break a cycle of harm, your light rises like the morning. You step forward with tenderness, patience, and belief in the good. You carry that hope like a sacred oil, and you pour it out when others have run dry. But not every situation calls for softness. Not every person comes with clean motives, and not every threat can be met with mercy. That's when another part of you awakens, not because you're cruel, but because you're wise. Your dark side isn't rage or vengeance, it's discernment, it's boundary, it's the fire in your chest that burns away lies and illusions. When manipulation enters the room, when someone repeatedly crosses your lines, when your peace is being drained drop by drop, this part of you steps forward with surgical clarity. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't soften truth. It protects what's sacred. And here's what breaks every known rule of spiritual design. You don't get stuck in either one. You move between these parts of yourself as if both are fully yours. You don't treat them as enemies, you treat them as instruments, tools to be used in the right moment. You don't explode, and you don't collapse. You respond with power, with grace, with astonishing control. To celestial beings who were created from only light, this is incomprehensible. A fallen angel falls forever. But you walk into your own darkness when you need to, you speak from it with clarity, and when the task is done, you let it go and return to light as if nothing ever disturbed your peace. It's not emotional amnesia, it's mastery. You've developed a spiritual immune system that lets you walk through fire without smelling like smoke. Let me make this real with what you've actually lived. You ended a relationship with someone who depleted you every time you reached out. They took your kindness for granted, dismissed your needs, ignored your growth, and twisted your care into something to control. And you, because your light is loyal, gave it time. You had the hard conversations. You made room for change. But when the pattern stayed the same, your clarity rose. You didn't erupt. You didn't curse them. You simply stepped away. You blocked, you walked, and you didn't look back. Not out of spite, but self-respect. And when they came back with tears, with emotional hooks, with their usual game, you saw through it. You stood your ground, and then you moved forward. You didn't carry anger. You didn't plot revenge. You didn't need closure. You created your own peace. Or maybe it was a job, one where you gave more than you were paid for, where your ideas were praised behind closed doors but overlooked in the open, where you showed up with integrity, delivered excellence, but were still treated like you were replaceable. You tried to fix it. You played by the rules. But one day you saw that staying meant shrinking, and your dark side, your courageous, uncompromising side, made the call. You quit. Not recklessly, but deliberately. And again, you walked without bitterness. You didn't burn bridges. You just stopped betraying yourself. And then there was that friendship, the one that always left you doubting your worth, the friend who was kind only when you were small, who mocked your dreams, who never clapped when you won. Your light made excuses. You tried to believe they didn't mean it. But one day the mask slipped one too many times, and your clarity came like lightning. You didn't confront them with drama. You simply stepped back. You stopped answering. You stopped shrinking to stay close. And you reinvested that energy in people who celebrated, not competed with you. In each of these stories, something extraordinary happened. You used your dark side to protect your light. And then you let the darkness rest. You didn't get consumed by it. You didn't let it reshape your heart. You didn't become the bitterness you had to push away. You kept your spirit intact. That's not just emotional maturity. That's spiritual mastery. And here's why this is so rare. True integration, the ability to hold both light and dark without collapsing, requires terrifying levels of honesty. You have to look at yourself and say, yes, I am capable of destruction. I have the ability to cut someone off. I can be fierce. I can be cold. And at the same time, that is not all of me. My dark side is real, but it's not in control. It's a servant, not a king, a guardian, not a guide. Most people cannot live in this paradox. Some stay trapped in permanent light, always kind, always saying yes, always turning the other cheek, even to those who slap with intention. They think it's holiness, but it's often just fear. They don't allow themselves to be firm, so they become easy to manipulate. Their love lacks boundaries, and it costs them everything. Others swing the other way, permanently hardened, wounded. They've decided the world is cruel, so they'll be cruel first. They armor up with sarcasm, aggression, suspicion. They call it strength, but really, it's loneliness in disguise. They cut before they're cut, and their darkness starts to rot their soul. They stop trusting, they stop loving, they stop dreaming. And one day, they look in the mirror and can't remember who they were before they got so angry. But you are part of a third group, the rare ones, the spiritually integrated. You don't deny either side of yourself. You accept both with humility. You activate light when healing is needed. You activate darkness when boundaries are required. And you return, always return, to your center. You know when to yield and when to draw the sword. You've learned through pain, through reflection, through experience that having access to power doesn't mean abusing it. You use your strength with precision, with discernment. With wisdom, you didn't learn from books, but from life itself. This is what Paul meant in 2 Corinthians 6-7, when he spoke of carrying the weapons of righteousness in both the right hand and the left, one hand for mercy, one hand for justice, not one or the other, both, and the ability to know when to use each one. That is what sets you apart. You are not light alone. You are not darkness alone. You are the place where both meet. And in a world that tries to force you to choose, your ability to hold that contradiction without collapsing is your quiet, radiant rebellion. And that is what even the angels don't know how to do. For thousands of years, celestial beings watched humanity from a place of purity, untouched by chaos, certain of their superiority. Angels, beings of pure light, were crafted without flaw. Their world had no confusion, no moral grey areas, no pain. Everything was perfectly ordered. And for a long time, they believed this was the highest form of existence until they saw you. Exactly 72 hours ago, something happened in the spiritual realms that left even the most ancient watchers speechless. After you moved between compassion and boundary, forgiveness and protection, tenderness and truth with absolute clarity, 3 angels gathered, beings who had seen the rise and fall of empires, who knew the laws of light and darkness better than any living soul, and they began to speak about you. The first angel, honest in his confusion, admitted, "I've watched the souls of men for thousands of years. I've seen kings and prophets, sages and martyrs, but I have never seen a soul move through both light and darkness without contamination. This breaks every law I know." The second angel, more cautious but equally unsettled, replied, "The laws are clear. Whoever touches darkness becomes darkness. That's been the foundation of our understanding since the dawn of creation. But this one, this chosen one, has done something we can't explain. Either the law is incomplete, or this human operates under spiritual mechanics we don't yet understand." And then the third, quiet for a long moment, shared something even heavier. "I touched darkness once, just once. It took me 1,000 years of purification to recover even a fraction of the light I lost, and this human walks into darkness, uses devastating power, then walks out untouched in seconds. It's impossible, based on everything I've experienced." Then came silence. 3 ancient beings, wise beyond time, had just admitted that a single human soul was doing something they could neither imitate nor comprehend. Finally, the first angel voiced the truth they were all dancing around. "We must accept this painful fact. This chosen one carries something we don't. They can move between light and dark because they were born into a world where both are constant. They've been shaped by fire we've never faced, and that fire gave them immunity we'll never have." And in that single sentence, the hierarchy cracked, because what they said next shook even the heavens. If this human can do it, there are likely others. Perhaps this is not a rare anomaly, but the beginning of something new, a generation of chosen ones, a wave of souls with dual wisdom, shaped by pain, trained in contradiction, spiritually evolved beyond the limits of our own creation. And the final voice spoke what no angel had dared say before. If integrated humans can do what we can't, then the hierarchy of spiritual order we've assumed for eons must be re-examined. Perhaps they are the next step in spiritual evolution, not us. The conversation ended not with fear, but reverent wonder. They didn't see you as a threat. They saw you as a miracle, a glimpse of what heaven never imagined possible. Because here is the truth. Your power does not lie only in your light. It does not lie in your dark side either. Your true power lies in the wisdom to know when to use each, and to do so without losing yourself. Demons are entirely darkness. They can destroy, deceive, manipulate, but they cannot create, they cannot heal, and they cannot love. Angels are entirely light. They can comfort, protect, inspire, but they cannot understand pain. They cannot establish destructive boundaries. and they cannot end what needs to be ended. Each exists in a single spectrum. But you carry both. And more than that, you carry balance. When the moment calls for healing, you shine. You forgive. You listen. You restore. You bring broken things back to life. But when the moment demands protection, you draw the line. You walk away. You cut ties. You speak truth that ends manipulation in a single breath. And what's remarkable isn't just that you can do both, it's that you can do one without losing the other. You don't lose your tenderness when you activate your fire. You don't forget how to love when you decide to protect. That fluidity, that seamless return to center, is something neither angel nor demon can achieve. It is uniquely human, uniquely you. You've become emotionally immune to what used to paralyze you. Manipulators no longer get past your radar. Abusers can't find a way back in. Fake apologies don't hold emotional weight. And real love, real connection, you still offer it freely, joyfully, to those who've earned it. Because you didn't let pain harden your heart. You let it sharpen your spirit. And that's what makes you complete. Not perfect. Never that. Angels were perfect, and their perfection made them fragile. But you were forged in imperfection. You have scars, but those scars are maps. You've walked through valleys and didn't pretend they were mountaintops. You've faced betrayal, not with vengeance, but with truth. You've touched every layer of human experience, grief, longing, rage, grace, and come out whole. Not untouched, but undefeated. Isaiah 45:3 says, I will give you the treasures of darkness, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord. That verse was never about wealth. It was about you. The treasure hidden in the dark was the wisdom born from pain, the authority born from survival, the discernment born from betrayal. That treasure is now yours, and heaven has taken notice. Because here's the final truth. Your completeness came from the very things you thought were going to destroy you. The nights you cried alone, the relationships that broke your heart, the injustice you endured in silence, the prayers you thought went unanswered, the shadows you were forced to walk through, all of it. That's where your mastery was born. That's where your power was shaped. You are not the wounded version of yourself anymore. You are the integrated one, the one who has walked with both the lion and the lamb, and learned how to roar and how to heal. You are not here to fit into old systems of good versus evil, light versus dark. You are here to embody something new, the kind of wholeness that can walk into any battlefield and remain unshaken. That's why angels watch in awe, because what they see in you is something their world never prepared them for, a soul that was born in the dirt, raised in contradiction, wounded by life, and yet more spiritually evolved than anything they've ever encountered. You are the paradox, the integration, the proof that imperfection can carry more power than perfection ever could. You are the next step in spiritual evolution, and you didn't even know it. Let's now turn to something deeply practical, because what you've just discovered about yourself isn't just beautiful, it's powerful. But power without direction can turn into chaos, or worse, self-destruction. So how do you use this dual nature consciously? How do you walk in the world with both light and shadow in your hands and still remain whole? It starts with awareness. You must first learn to recognize the signals your own soul is giving you. Your light side feels expansive. It feels like softness, generosity, openness. You find yourself wanting to reach out, to forgive, to connect, to pour your energy into something or someone. It feels like breath, like the warmth of sunlight after a long night. This is when your system is telling you, the moment is safe. Open the gates, let love in. Your dark side, by contrast, feels like contraction. You feel yourself pulling inward. You become still, focused, protective, not out of fear, but out of precision. You're assessing, watching, feeling the subtle cues. Your system is saying, A boundary is needed here. Not everyone is meant to touch what is sacred in you. This isn't coldness. This is discernment. Don't judge either state. They are both forms of wisdom. They are not emotional overreactions. They are internal navigation systems trained by your lived experience. Ecclesiastes 3 says, "There is a time for everything, a time to heal and a time to kill, a time to tear down and a time to build."